There is a moment in life, quiet as a falling leaf, when the body begins to whisper truths the heart is reluctant to hear. A moment when time no longer marches, but slows, as if holding its breath. For those in the later seasons of life, these moments are not always loud or dramatic. Often they come gently, subtle warnings, silent echoes, signs that the final chapter is drawing near. But to recognize these signs is not to invite fear. It is to prepare with wisdom. It is to soften our hearts and focus our presence, so that when the end does come, it is not a stranger, but an old friend arriving in peace. There are 7 such silent warnings. None scream for attention, but all deserve it. When the wind changes direction, it does not shout, it simply shifts. In the same way, the human body and spirit speak in silence before the final transformation. There is no trumpet that announces the soul's departure, but there are signs, subtle, quiet, deeply human signs that whisper to those who are present and willing to observe. These are not signs of defeat, nor of tragedy. They are invitations to be more awake, more compassionate, more prepared. The first invitation is this: observe the change in rhythm. A person who once greeted the morning with routine and clarity may slowly withdraw from these small acts of daily life. Meals are no longer anticipated. Conversations once full of stories become still. The television plays, but it is no longer watched. This withdrawal is not depression. It is not necessarily illness. It is the soul beginning to loosen its ties to the external world. Imagine a boat that has been moored to the dock for decades. As the journey nears, the ropes are quietly untied, one by one. The person is not leaving out of rejection, but out of readiness. There was once a man who had lived nearly a century. Each evening, he would walk the garden path, touching the leaves, smelling the soil. One evening, he sat by the window and watched instead. "The trees don't need me anymore," he whispered. He was not sad. He was simply at peace. This is the essence of inner withdrawal. The energy that once reached outward is now turning inward, like a river flowing back to its source. To recognize this is to stop trying to pull the person back into activities. Instead, sit with them in the stillness. Meet them where they are, not where they used to be. In such times, many around the elderly feel helpless, but this is a misunderstanding of what is truly needed. When the body begins its quiet retreat, what it seeks is not solutions, but presence, not advice, but silence. To be there, truly there, is the medicine that reaches deeper than any pill or tonic. Do not fill the silence with talk. Instead, let your attention speak. When a person is no longer interested in things, it is time to offer the gift of being. This withdrawal may also be from people. The elderly may no longer wish for visitors. They may speak less, and yet their eyes may carry more meaning than ever before. What they no longer say in words, they express in glances, in breaths, in long pauses. This is not rejection, it is reflection. Like a mountain covered in snow, still and vast, they are not empty, they are full in a different way too. Observe this shift is to honor it. A daughter once asked her father, "Do you want to come outside?" He shook his head and pointed to his heart. "I'm already there," he said. In this moment, the difference between external activity and internal presence becomes clear. Life is no longer measured in doing, but in being. The second sign, equally quiet yet powerful, is the loss of appetite and thirst. Once again, we must look through the eyes of nature. A tree, in autumn, does not continue drawing water at the same rate. Its leaves fall not because it is broken, but because the cycle is turning. Likewise, the elderly nearing the end often lose the urge to eat or drink. The body, in its ancient wisdom, knows that digestion takes energy it no longer wishes to spend. It is not forgetting to eat. It is choosing to rest. To force food at such a time is to misunderstand the moment. The need is not for calories, but for compassion. Do not say, "You must eat to stay strong." Instead, ask, "Would a spoonful of soup bring you comfort?" Shift from the language of strength to the language of ease. Replace expectation with acceptance. There is a story from an old village where elders were always offered tea when ill. One day a young boy asked the healer why tea and not food. The healer smiled and said, "Tea does not demand, it offers. Food insists on work. Tea simply warms the spirit." When the body no longer seeks nourishment, it is time to feed the spirit. Caregivers often feel guilt or fear when a loved one stops eating. But in this stage, the body is not starving, it is simplifying. Just as a flame flickers gently before going out, so too does the desire for taste, texture, and hunger begin to fade. We must learn not to panic at this change. Instead, take it as a signal that presence matters more than portions. Even thirst may diminish. The mouth becomes dry, but the person may not ask for water. This is not always suffering. It is part of the body's sacred slowing down. Small sips, a moist cloth to the lips, a tender stroke of the hair, these become the true care rituals. It is not how much you give, but how you give it. The loss of appetite and thirst is a turning inward. It is as if the person no longer needs the outside world to fuel their being. They begin to live more in memory, more in essence, A woman once said of her dying mother, she hadn't eaten for days, but when I read her favorite poem, her whole face lit up. In this moment, we learn that nourishment comes in many forms. There is wisdom in watching nature. Birds eat less before migration. Animals curl inwards before hibernation. The elderly too are preparing for a journey not away from us, but towards something we cannot yet see. When appetite fades, we must not cling to spoons and plates. Instead, we must bring forth stories, music, scents, and stillness. We often fear these signs because we misunderstand them. We think they signal suffering, but what if they signal release? What if the absence of hunger is the body's way of teaching us about letting go? One must not resist what is natural, but flow with it. The river does not cry when it reaches the sea, it simply becomes the sea. And so it is with these silent signals. The withdrawal from activity, the loss of desire for food and water, are not endings, they are dissolvings. The walls between this world and the next grow thinner, and in that soft space, we are invited to listen, to witness, to hold without holding on. These moments, though quiet, are full of depth. They are not to be rushed through or medicated away. They are to be honored, as one honors a final sunset, not with fear, but with reverence. When we see these signs, we are not seeing defeat. We are seeing wisdom at work, showing us how to surrender with grace. The lesson, if we are open to it, is this: presence is greater than fixing, and gentleness is stronger than force. To those who observe, these signs offer a new kind of clarity, not medical, but spiritual. A clarity that says, now is the time to be slow. Now is the time to speak less and feel more. Now is the time to walk beside, not ahead. In doing so, we meet the moment not with resistance, but with readiness. And readiness is not the absence of sorrow, it is the presence of understanding. There comes a time when the body begins to slow down, not as an act of weakness, but as a preparation. The rhythm changes. What once seemed urgent now fades. What once demanded attention is replaced by stillness. In this sacred shift, one of the most misunderstood signs is the appearance of deep and unusual fatigue. It is not the tiredness of a long day's work, nor the sleepiness that follows a restless night. This is a different kind of tiredness. It comes from deep within the bones, from the breath, from the space between thoughts. In the early morning, an elderly monk once sat beneath a tree. His disciples noticed that his meditation had grown longer, his movements slower. One of them asked, "Master, are you feeling ill?" The old man opened his eyes, smiled, and said, "I am not tired, I am becoming lighter." This is what true fatigue at the end of life looks like, not burden, but lightness. The soul begins to release what it no longer needs. The body follows. The person may sleep more during the day. Conversations become fewer. Even holding a cup of tea feels like lifting a mountain. But in this heaviness there is no complaint. It is not a cry for help, but a sign that the body no longer wishes to fight the current. The river no longer pushes, it floats. For those observing this change, patience becomes the most important offering. Do not hurry the tired. Do not wake the sleeping for small talk. Let them drift. Let them rest. It is in this stillness that the body finds peace. Sometimes there is guilt in this rest. "I am sorry I sleep so much," one elder whispered, but there is no need for apology. The soul is doing invisible work. The body is reorganizing itself for departure. Like a tree shedding its last leaves, this rest is necessary. It is part of the preparation. It deserves respect. Fatigue is not always physical. It can also be seen in the eyes. A gaze that once sparkled with alertness becomes soft, slow to respond. The world around may move quickly, but for the elderly nearing life's end, the senses begin to retreat. Sight, hearing, and speech become secondary. Attention turns inward. And yet, this is not disconnection, it is reflection. A man who once spent his days fixing radios sat quietly for hours one afternoon, his fingers still moving in the air as if tuning a dial. He wasn't repairing anything in the room, he was remembering, he was feeling. He was gathering the pieces of his life like a craftsman preparing to store away his tools. In such moments, don't try to pull a person back into the world. Instead, join them in that inner space. Read to them softly. Share a familiar scent. Play an old song, not to awaken but to accompany. These gestures are not meant to energize but to comfort. Fatigue does not ask for motivation, it asks for understanding. The fourth sign arrives quietly but leaves a deep impression. Confusion. Changes in mental awareness. These are not errors in the mind, they are signs that the boundary between worlds is growing thinner. A person may forget where they are, speak to someone long past, or repeat the same words again and again. What seems strange to the observer may be deeply real to the one experiencing it. There is a story told about a woman who, in her final days, began speaking to her younger brother. "He's waiting for me in the apple orchard," she said. Her brother had died 40 years ago. Some in the family were alarmed, others confused. But her daughter, instead of correcting her, simply asked, "What do you see?" And in that moment, the woman smiled and described the orchard in detail: the smell of the trees, the laughter of her brother, the sound of wind in the leaves. It brought her peace, not facts, but presence. To argue with a person in such a state is to miss the essence of what is unfolding. The mind is not failing, it is exploring. Perhaps the doorway between this life and the next has begun to open, and the soul, curious and calm, begins to peer through. This confusion is not a problem to be solved, it is an experience to be witnessed. The role of the loved one is not to correct, but to accompany. You may notice conversations that make no logical sense. You may hear whispers to invisible figures. Do not interrupt. These may be moments of deep significance. There is a realm beyond reason, and the elderly in their final stages often walk both realms. In the daylight, they are here, but by dusk, they are somewhere else, somewhere deeper. This is not to say that all confusion is peaceful. Sometimes it can bring agitation. A man who had always been calm became restless, trying to rise from his bed, though his body would not respond. He spoke of needing to get on the train, though there was none in sight. His son held his hand and asked, "Where are you going?" The father paused, then relaxed. "Home," he said. After that, he never tried to rise again. The question was not answered with logic, but with presence. This is the path of understanding. Mental shifts may also cause time to blur. A person may think it is morning when it is night, or expect visitors who are no longer alive. These are not errors, they are echoes. The mind, like a room with many windows, lets in images from many directions. To a person nearing life's end, time becomes soft. Past, present, and future begin to fold together. This is why memory often becomes vivid. A man may forget the names of his grandchildren but recall the exact sound of his mother's voice. These memories are not accidental, they are sacred. In such times, meet the person where they are. If they speak of an old event, ask about it. If they seem lost in thought, be still with them. If they are quiet, do not fill the silence with worry. Their journey is not linear, it spirals. Like a bird circling before it lands, the mind revisits what matters most before it lets go. There is deep teaching in all this. Fatigue teaches us to slow down. Confusion teaches us to let go of certainty. Both are teachers, not enemies. They ask us to put aside our preferences and enter the mystery. To be with someone who is tired and confused is not easy, but it is sacred. It is a kind of meditation, a training in stillness, humility, and love. As we walk with the elderly through these stages, we are being invited to release our need for control, to listen more, to do less, to stop trying to fix what is not broken. The mind and body are not collapsing, they are transforming. The person we love is not disappearing. They are becoming part of something larger, something we cannot yet see. So we sit, we hold a hand that trembles. We speak softly to a face that may or may not recognize us. We stay, even when words fail. And in this staying, we learn the language of the soul. Not every journey ends with clarity. Some end in quiet, some in fog. But if we can stay present through the tiredness, if we can sit beside the confusion, we give the greatest gift, not cure, but companionship. Not answers, but attention. Not control, but compassion. A wise elder once said, "When death comes, may it find you fully alive." That is the purpose of recognizing these signs, not to anticipate death, but to cherish life, to focus on what matters, to forgive what burdens the heart, to whisper love while there is still time. Let us not turn away from these truths, but look gently into them, for within them lies the most sacred invitation, to walk beside one another all the way home.